Production of Broad and High is funded in part by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, supporting arts, advancing culture, and connecting the community to artists, events, and classes at columbusmakesart.com. And by the Ohio Arts Council, a state agency that funds and supports quality arts experiences.
Here's a fun fact. The first known globe that included a depiction of the New World dates back to the early 1500s. And get this, it was etched on an ostrich egg. It was actually constructed using the lower halves of 2 ostrich eggs, making it nearly spherical and about the size of a grapefruit. Cincinnati artist Terri Kern might have been interested in this factoid. As a child, she was fascinated by archaeology, but decided to pursue a career that helped define her own personal history.
Well, as a child, it's kind of funny, I wanted to be Indiana Jones. Totally not an artist. And so from a very early age, I became fascinated with the idea of objects that held their own histories and told their own stories. 40 years later, and now I'm an artist, and I create my own objects that hold my history and tell my stories. As I got through school and realized that the anthropology, the earth science, the sociology classes that were necessary to become an archaeologist, I was like, not so much. So I thought if I can't be the person that digs up the art, maybe I can be the person that makes the art. And that's when I really decided that I was going to become an artist. Clay was created through the process of erosion, the breaking down of the Earth's crust. And I just think the history, some of the things that we know about ancient civilizations, we know because we found their pots. We found a fingerprint. And the fact that thousands of years later, I am doing the same basic thing that some prehistoric person did by creating some kind of container to hold something that's sacred to me. Maybe for some people it's that cup of morning coffee. Maybe for the ancient people it was grain. That link through time and history that ceramics holds, for me, that is just, I actually have goosebumps just talking about it because it's awesome. So I'll start with the ceramic vessel that I've made and I'll paint it with underglaze. Every layer that's painted on the surface is translucent like watercolor, so it's kind of a see-through color. So to build up the solid quality of color on all of my pieces, in the background alone there can be 9 layers of color painted on the surface. So what I do is this multi-layering process of color. Because I do that, I usually will work on 5 or 6 pieces at one time, so while the underglaze is drying on one piece, I move to the next. Once I get the background painted on, I let it dry, and then I have a bunch of designs, different drawings of birds and ladders and trees and things like that, and I work out a lot of my design work on tissue paper. Once all the color's on, I have a fine line detail brush and I use black underglaze, and I outline everything and put in all the little lines. And for me, that's when the magic happens. Because as I'm painting the contours and putting in the little lines, I'm thinking about what is this piece about? What am I trying to express? Is it something funny or something sad or something emotional? And somehow that magic of mind, heart, and body goes into the piece at that time so that when you as the viewer look at it, you feel something. My work is very narrative, it's very symbolic. I'm very inspired by nature, so nature is something that's always going to be showing up in my work. Another thing is birds. When I think of birds, I started to think about the women in my family and think of how powerful they were. I'm afraid of heights, so whenever I am feeling anxiety or I'm concerned about something, I start to paint ladders in my work representing that height. It also represents the idea of conquering your fears, because once you start on that journey, whatever it is, you get a little higher. Oh, this feels bad. And then you get used to it. Well, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. Okay, then you go up another rung and it's like, oh my God. And then you get used to it. Books represent the idea of history, my history, the history that I haven't yet written for myself. I got married when I was 36 and my husband was 40. He's got a book of his history and I have a book of my history. But when we get married, we start writing a new book together. So it's our job as partners to read each other's pages. Trees representing compromise because they can move and bend with the wind and the forces of nature, but they don't usually break. Leaves represent the idea of change. I love the idea of leaves falling down and kind of decaying and providing nourishment for the roots. whenever I need to remind myself to be fierce, I paint dragons. So what you see through my work is that whatever I'm experiencing, I find a way to put it in my work using this narrative symbolism. And I think that somehow the ideas I had in my head kind of filtered down through my heart and came out through my hands, so when I created something, people would look at it, not only would they like the way it looked, but they would feel something when they looked at it. And that's something that is mysterious to me still to this day.